Everyone in Westeros has a house. Not everyone chooses it. Most people are born into one, into the words, the colors, the particular flavor of loyalty that the family has been practicing for generations. You inherit the sigil the way you inherit the nose, the temperament, the specific way your father looked at you when you disappointed him. It is simply what you are. It does not occur to you for a long time that it could be otherwise. But some people move. Some people look at the house they were born into and calculate, consciously or not, that the ceiling is too low, the walls too close, the future too predetermined. And they begin the process of becoming someone else's person, then someone else's, then someone else's again. This is not always cowardice. Sometimes it is survival. Sometimes it is ambition in its purest form, the refusal to be defined by an accident of birth. Westeros has a word for people like this, and the word is not flattering. But the people it describes are often the most interesting ones in the room. The ones who understand how power actually moves. The ones who know that loyalty is not a virtue. It is a currency. And like all currencies, its value depends entirely on what you spend it on and when. You are one of these people. This is your story across 5 houses, 5 versions of yourself, each one slightly less recognizable than the last, each one built on the ruins of the previous loyalty. You will gain with every move. You will also lose something that doesn't have a name in any of the 7 kingdoms. Something that gets smaller with each betrayal until the day you reach for it and find it gone entirely. The game was never going to end well for you. You just didn't know yet that you were the one who ended it. Part 1. House Stark. You grew up believing in the North. Not as a political position. As a physical fact, the way you believe in winter or stone or the weight of a word given and meant. The Starks did not invent honor. They simply practiced it so consistently across so many generations that in the North the two things became synonymous. You absorbed this the way you absorb the cold, completely, without deciding to, because it was simply the air of the place. Winterfell is a fortress built around a hot spring, and this, you will think later, is the most honest metaphor the North ever produced. Warmth at the center, stone around everything. The cold kept out by sheer thickness of wall. You were warm here. You belonged here in the specific way that people belong to places that shaped them before they had language for shaping. Lord Stark treated you fairly. This is not nothing. In Westeros, fairness is rarer than dragonglass and considerably less celebrated. He was a man who said what he meant and meant what he said and expected the same in return, and when you gave it he rewarded it with the particular respect of someone who recognizes a quality they value. You told yourself, when the time came, that leaving wasn't betrayal, that the North ceiling was real and your ambitions were real, and that a man with your capabilities owed it to himself to find a larger stage. You told yourself this so many times it started to sound true. The Stark words are, winter is coming. You left before it arrived. Part 2. House Tully. The Rivellins taught you that warmth can be a strategy. House Tully runs on family, duty, honor, in that order, which matters more than it seems. Family first. The Tullys are not cold like the Starks. They are deliberate. The hospitality is real, but it is also managed, the generosity calibrated, the openness an instrument of influence, as much as a genuine expression of character. You recognized this immediately, and it comforted you in a way you didn't examine too closely, because recognition meant you were in a place that operated on logic you already understood. Lord Hoster received you with the particular warmth of a man who collects useful people and knows one when he sees one. You were given responsibility early. Access. The feeling of being seen not just as a person, but as an asset, which in Westeros is its own form of affection. You were good here. Genuinely good. Productive, trusted, effective in the specific way that people are effective when the environment fits their capabilities. You told yourself this was belonging. It felt close enough to belonging that the difference didn't seem worth examining. The betrayal here was quieter than the one before. No dramatic departure. Just a conversation with a Lannister envoy in a corridor, a piece of information exchanged, a door opened that could not be closed again. Small. Surgical. The Tully words say, family, duty, honor. You chose none of the three. You chose the door. Part 3. House Lannister. A Lannister always pays their debts. What they don't tell you is what the payment costs the person receiving it. You arrived in King's Landing understanding that you had traded warmth for power, and you were at peace with this trade, and the peace lasted approximately 3 weeks before the city showed you what power actually looked like from inside. The Lannisters are not cruel. This is the thing that surprises people who see only the results of their decisions. They are precise. Cruelty is emotional, and the Lannisters distrust emotion the way craftsmen distrust tools they can't control. What they practice instead is consequence, clean, proportional, delivered without theater. You cross a Lannister, and the response is not rage. It is arithmetic. You learned to speak this language. It came naturally, which was itself information you filed and did not examine. The gold, the proximity to the throne, the particular quality of walking into a room and having people adjust. These things did something to you that the Stark years and the Tully years had not done. They made you feel, for the first time, that the version of yourself you had been building across each betrayal was not a compromise, but an upgrade. Tyrion looked at you once across a table and said nothing. Just looked. The way someone looks at a reflection that doesn't quite match. You looked away first. The Lannister debt you owe is not gold. It is the version of yourself you spent here. Part 4. House Targaryen. Fire and blood. You arrived believing you had finally found the house that matched the scale of your ambitions. The Targaryens don't play the game the way everyone else plays it. They arrived with dragons and rewrote the rules, and the memory of that rewriting is still present in everything they do, a kind of institutional confidence that no other house carries. You wanted to be inside that confidence, to have it adjacent to you, to let some of it land. Daenerys received you with the particular attention of someone who has learned to assess loyalty quickly because the cost of misreading it has been, historically, catastrophic. You were assessed. You were found useful. You were given a role that carried real weight, and you filled it with the accumulated competence of 3 previous houses, the Stark steadiness, the Tully relational intelligence, the Lannister precision. And for a time you were objectively excellent. The dragons were real. This sounds obvious, but it requires saying, there is a difference between knowing something intellectually and standing in the same space as it, feeling the heat from 30 feet away, understanding in your body rather than your mind that the world contains this. It changes the scale of things. It changed you. The betrayal here was the one you told yourself was righteousness. The intelligence passed. The allegiance quietly redirected. The careful language used in a careful letter to careful people who would use it carefully to bring something enormous down. You told yourself it was the right thing. You had been telling yourself things for a long time. Part 5. The house you built. There is no sigil. This is the first thing you notice when you try to picture it. The house you have been building across every departure, every carefully worded betrayal. Every room entered and exited and left slightly worse for your having been in it. There is no sigil because a sigil requires something to stand for, and you have spent so long in the business of standing for whoever needed you most in that particular season that the original thing, the thing you stood for before the first calculation, is no longer retrievable. You are powerful. This is real. The influence accumulated across 4 houses, for sets of relationships, for deposits of trust withdrawn at exactly the right moment. It built something. You sit in rooms that matter. People listen when you speak. You have survived Westeros, which is not a small thing, which is in fact the primary achievement of most people who attempt it. But survival is not the same as winning, and you understand this now in a way you didn't when the game began. Winning requires knowing what you were playing for. And somewhere between Winterfell and the Riverlands and King's Landing and wherever Daenerys was standing when she looked at you with those eyes, somewhere in that distance, the original answer to that question went quiet. You reach for it sometimes. On the nights that have a particular quality of stillness. You reach for the thing you wanted before you wanted power. Before you understood that wanting power was easier than wanting the thing you actually wanted. Because power is achievable, and the other thing required you to stay somewhere long enough to receive it. You didn't stay anywhere long enough. The house you built has no sigil, no words, no seat that will pass to anyone when you're gone. It has walls made of every loyalty you left behind. And it is the coldest place you have ever lived. And it is yours. Entirely, completely, irreversibly yours. You built it perfectly. That was always the problem.